I am thine, all is thine, thy will be done. Mine binds, thine liberates. Mine binds, tapas, thine liberates. So if you drop minds all over, they will undermine your life or blow up in your face. I know, I tell them. But if you change all the minds to thines, you will always be safe.
Hello and welcome to the Sutra Squad podcast brought to you by One Deep Breath. My name is Seth Barron. I am with the superstar Sutra Squad, Sally Moore.
Hello, welcome.
And Sarah Page Hall.
Hello, hello.
And Sarah Page, what is one word that describes how you feel right now?
Abundant.
Oh.
First word that came to mind, abundant.
Perfect. Sally Moore, what's one word for you right now?
After spending hours in the depths of the sutra yesterday, I was going to say enthusiastic, but I'm just going to be cautiously enthusiastic.
Cautiously enthusiastic.
2 words, but okay. 2 words.
We'll take it.
Hyphenated.
Hyphenated. So yeah, it's a compound. I'm just flow. Like, as in, like, I'm like in a kind of a flow state moment of life. That feels good. Feels really good. Yeah. Sometimes sometimes it flows and sometimes it, I don't know. I was trying to think of something like sometimes it don't.
Sometimes it don't.
Sometimes you feel like
a flow.
Sometimes you don't. And that's actually the perfect place to talk about like where we're at in our study. This week we're going to begin our exploration of the second chapter of the Yoga Sūtra. So the first chapter is the Sādhana Pāda that describes, I always just think it's so fascinating how like there's this cycle, right? Because we begin at the end and then we'll get to the beginning again. And so the Sādhana Pāda sort of describes like yoga and these big conceptual sometimes and often contrasting ideas. Like we're presented with some really big ideas to sort of like hold concurrently, like abhyasa and vairagya as the means by which we achieve the nirodha, the restraint of the swirl, the chitta vritti of our mind. And we've explored that, and we've explored like even the locks and the keys has these like contrasting ideas. It's actually full of them, right? That like punya, like virtue and the lack of virtue, sukha, dukkha, right? Like sweetness, ease, and happiness, and pain, and suffering, and challenge, and we're told that like even in both of those, we have to find our way through, and so there's all these big ideas, and then at the end of the first chapter, Master Patanjali describes like the different levels or like flavors of samadhi that one can achieve. And fascinatingly then, when the second chapter begins, the second chapter is the Sādhana Pāda. And Pāda means chapter. It also means foot. Sometimes it means step. And so now we're like in the second step. Taken the first step, which is to try to understand the nature of samadhi, of like where this is all going. What is this thing called yoga? What does it mean to find a sense of chitta vritti nirodha, like that restraint, that swaddling of the mind? And sadhana sadhana means practice. Often it refers to like to describe, another way this word is often used is that to have a sadhana is to have a personal practice, like a personal spiritual practice. Like what we're doing right here and right now is sadhana for us. I'm very rarely presumptuous to speak for my fellow sutra squatters, but like I think we can all agree. Like, and even like the origin of this whole podcast is sadhana. Like we wanted to stay in studentship together, and we've just found such richness and in this study together, and the sadhana and the commitment to our sadhana was really meaningful. And so we found a way to do that and to stay hopefully in service so that our sadhana is of service. So here, the Sādhana Pāda often is translated as the chapter on practice. So it's like we've been given these great big ideas, and then Master Patanjali gives us like the instructions get more detailed as to like, what do you actually do? Which brings us to then the first chapter, the beginning of that journey of practice, in which we are given 3 practices, 3 ideas to put into practice as a yoga of action. And the verse is tapas, svadhayaya, isvara, pranidhana, Kriya Yoga. There's a little bit of Sanskrit grammar happening here. The 3 ideas are tapas, svadhayaya, and isvara pranidhana. It sounds a little bit more melodious as tapas, svadhayaya, isvara pranidhanani. Right? You can hear it has like a more melodious feel. So we'll hear that in just a moment. As we do, and as we invite you to join us to do, is to just take this moment and ground back to where you are. And that might mean just like noticing, I think all 3 of us are sort of like shaking out the shoulders. Maybe get a little bit intentional in the seat that you're taking right now in your asana. And if it is safe to do so, maybe find just a moment of stillness. My hands just sort of landed on my heart today. And if it's of service to you in that cultivation of presence, you could close your eyes for a moment. And if it's part of your sadhana, your practice, you can bring your hands together in Anjali Mudra, in a prayer right here at your heart. Take a deep breath in. Let it go. And for one Om together, breathe in. Chanting Yoga Sūtra 2.1. Tapas, svadhayaya, isvara, pranidhana, Kriya Yoga. Tapas, svadhayaya, isvara, pranidhana, Kriya Yoga. Tapas, svadhayaya, isvara, pranidhana, Kriya Yoga. So as I said, there's 3 big ideas: tapa or tapas, svadhayaya, and then isvara, pranidhana. So we've talked a little bit about the last one. If you remember in verse 123, isvara pranidhanadva, in which we're told that the only shortcut, if there was to be one, its most literal translation is, or you could just surrender everything to God as like a path to samadhi. Sarah Page's favorite, one of her favorites. But before that, we get these other 2. And this is like the first time we're going to engage. And these are all going to come back because also fascinatingly, these 3 components are all 3 of the first, not the first, they're the last 3 of the niyamas, which is the second limb of yoga. The yamas are the moral observances for the yogi in the world. And the niyamas, ni is in, or like to turn in, are like the personal practices of the yogi. And they're shaucha, santosha, and then tapas, svadhayaya, and isvara, pranidhana. So let's start with the first. Tapas is a word that's used very often in our shared lineage of yoga and Baptiste yoga. And it's a word that's used a lot in modern asana practice. So let's just start with instead of doing translations of the whole verse, what does tapas mean to you, Sally?
It's interesting. So tapas has always meant to me heat, staying with the heat, staying with the struggle of life.
Yeah, and literally it often is translated as heat. One of the ways I like to translate that, I like to teach that heat is if you bring your hands together and then you start rubbing them, you hear it, right? You can do this at home. You can start to feel the heat in your hands, and then you can even put the hands up to your face and you feel that heat radiating off. That's tapas. It's the heat of friction, right? Ujjayi pranayama, ujjayi breath, has an element of tapas, right? Because that little bit of friction in your throat, right? It creates it's part of the heat that we generate in asana practice. Also, tapas also means austerity. And austerity usually in the context of sadhana, of spiritual practice. So you can engage in or to be a tapasya is one who invites in the austerity of practice. So people in India engage in all manner and forms of tapasyas as part of their sadhana. You could, for some people, fasting is a practice of tapas. So I also think it's fascinating, actually, in Sri Swami Satchidananda's translation of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Here, tapas, he offers this translation, which is accepting pain as purification.
You stole mine. You stole it. That's exactly it. I love this.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything more about it?
No, I think that, quickly, I just think that accepting pain, we run from pain so much, but to be able to accept pain. And I got to thinking about it when I had my daughter. I accepted the pain of labor because I knew that after the pain of labor, I was going to have a baby to hold up. So that's some tapas. So, but I was very moved by that, actually. And it tends to help me to look at tapas, which I've always seen as very negative, as friction, as pain and this and that and burning, as to accept it, because after that is going to be something, to almost be grateful for it, because once you get through it, you're at a point of grace.
There were a few things that from inside Patanjali's words by Reverend Jagannath Carrera that I noted about tapas. It said the yogi learns to regard hardship as opportunities for purification from negative states of mind. Tapas is not simply grimly enduring pain and suffering. Adversity's encounter with the proper yogic attitude of acceptance, equanimity, and mindfulness can become time of discovering or developing strengths and virtues that we never suspected we have. And then just a tiny bit more, which I really saw this time for the first time, tapas holds one more great benefit. Heat can also unite. How often have we witnessed the unity of communities when challenged by natural disaster? Empathy and compassion rise quickly with, and a great unifying power allow us to nurture hope and behold examples of the beauty of human nature when it's freed from self-interest. Cultivating the attitude of tapas helps us convert experiences that bring suffering into a heat that purifies and unites, and the light that enlightens. And the picture that kept coming to my mind, I'm not sure if it was New York City or I think there was also in some other countries during the beginning of COVID when there was a lot of lockdown and people were standing on their balconies singing. That just kept coming to my mind.
We banged pots out the window in New York. Yeah. Every night. That's all tapas. We'll do a whole episode on tapas, by the way. We will get there, for sure. But so this is just an introduction to a really big idea. It's a really big idea. And I think the only thing I'll also say is that like, there's always a difference in the discernment that we have to stay curious with and cultivate, that like there's a big difference between the sweet pain of challenge and like the sharp pain of injury. And, when it comes to like tapas in the asana studio, sometimes like we probably all, each of us personally walked up to that line and maybe dipped a toe or two across it. And I've seen students do the same. And so I think it's just really, really, really important to note too, that like, I think Sally, you've said this, like, yoga is never punitive. Yoga is never, punishing. Yoga is kind and always. And there's a kindness to like staying in the heat. There actually is a kindness. Like sometimes kindness means being honest in a way that creates friction. And that's also tapas. Telling somebody you love that they aren't living up to who you know they want to be. Right? That's both generous and it's challenging. And there's heat there. Right? It can be. But like all of that is so there's a really, really, really big idea. And that sense that heat is also, it's painful and it's purifying, right? Like we go through the fire and it's only by the austerity and the friction, and our willingness to really cultivate some curiosity, do we truly find growth on the other side. So let's talk about that curiosity. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sally.
Sorry, I just went back. When Ruben Vasquez in Unravel a Thread used the word enthusiasm for tapas. And I was just thinking when you were talking about this, like my daughter's partner broke his neck a few years ago. And the heat was actually in staying still. Like the enthusiasm in healing meant on the days you need to stay still, you need to stay still. When you need to back off, but the enthusiasm of moving through this into healing, like keeping the healing moving forward, is that enthusiasm to move through it, but not to bypass where you are in the journey.
It's like Shavasana, right? Everybody can't wait to get to Shavasana until you're in Shavasana. And then it's like, okay, I gotta go grocery shop. The discomfort of silence.
So then in that silence often is the curiosity about like, who is that? Who's in the silence? And that's the second idea, svadhayaya. Sarah Page, what is svadhayaya?
I'm so glad you asked, because this is one of my favorite things. It's self-study. But I love, in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, by Satchitananda, what he says, and it's just so beautiful because we've had this discussion. This is not religion. This is not a religious study. It's not. But we've also have had discussions around how this is also similar. Hinduism has the Trimurti and Christianity has the Holy Trinity, and it goes on and on and on. There's so many similarities. And he goes on, he says, this means the study that concerns the true self, not merely analyzing the emotions of the mind as the psychologists and psychiatrists do. He says, anything that will elevate your mind and remind you of your true self should be studied. The Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Quran, these Yoga Sutras, or any uplifting scripture. Study does not just mean, and this is for me, does not mean passing over the pages. It means trying to understand every word. It means studying with the heart. We've had that conversation before. And the more you read, the more you understand. For thousands of years, many people have been studying the Bible. Every day, thousands of people will read the same book. On the other hand, we have millions and millions and millions of books that after we read them once, we throw them away in the trash. We don't exhaust the Bible even after reading it hundreds of times because it's different every single time. And I just love that. I love how he drew it. It's not about self-study, isn't about, listen, I love to journal, but it's not, I don't remember what I journaled yesterday. It's not that. It's what we've done for 5-6 years, going through these scriptures, going through these, texts and finding something new every single time that we go through it. It's, we are never the same self. So yes, it's easy to say it's self-study, but which self? The self you are now, the self you are in the present. And that's what I see now. Like that was new to me yesterday looking through this. He talks about, he says, it's like going to the top of the Empire State Building. When you start on the first floor, you see a little bit. Then you go to the second floor and you see a little bit. And then you climb all the way up to the 101st floor and you can see everything. But you had to go through all of these steps and stages and floors. It's just, I love him so much.
I mean, that's a great analogy though, because it really plays that great. Like if you're going to take the stairs up to the top of the Empire State Building, first couple floors, first flight's probably pretty easy. We all could walk up 3, 4, 5, even 6 flights of stairs without getting too pressed. Then you get to the 6th, 7th, 8th, and then you're on the 20th. And now your legs are probably feeling some tapas. And maybe you pause there and you take a look around. But there's more. So you keep going, right? Like my teacher Bethany says, this practice is a mountain with no top. Right? It's like you just keep climbing.
The Buddhist saying is, at the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next.
I haven't heard that one, but that's nice.
Yeah, it's like once you get to the top of one mountain, you're at the foot of another one.
Yeah. And the curiosity then is to say like, okay, well, right now at this mountain, who am I? Who's here? Who is this person? And so again, like many words in Sanskrit, this has multiple connotations. There's both, like sometimes this is like, Sri Swami Satchidananda actually translates this as study of spiritual books. In addition to that sense of study of self, like who is studying the books? Sally, is there like what else? Like is there anything else on svadhayaya?
So once again, from Ruben Vasquez, he used the word intelligence, which I really kind of hadn't seen before. But then from Reverend Jagannath Carrera on self-study, I hadn't noticed this before either, but he said the sutras portray an understanding of study that shares the framework same as scientific research. Research begins with a clear statement of its objective. In yoga, the objective is to eradicate suffering born from ignorance. In yoga, as in any research, the results need to be replicatable, not pronouncing that word, by others following the same essential methods. The body, the mind of the yogi are the laboratory for this experimentation. We can summarize the goal of study as bringing the light of wisdom, I really like this, into the darkest and most unvisited corners of our minds, hearts, and lives. So once again, not punitive, like am I just seeking the truth? But do I have a method to this seeking? And through this svadhayaya, is it intelligence? Like a really embodied intelligence, right?
I love the word embodied, Sally. An embodied intelligence.
And Reverend Jagannath Carrera also in Inside Patanjali's words, I just think it's interesting. Sva as a root is like self-referential. It's like self-reflexive. And adhi, to go over or on, to turn over in the mind repeatedly, to recite until memorized and absorbed. And so he says, svadhyaya could refer to the study of self or to integrating the teachers learned from scripture and the guru into oneself. How fascinating. Right? It reminds me, Sally, I think you said like, I think this one is from The Secret Power of Yoga that you've quoted many times, which is that like, yes, study these practices, study these words, but let them be a path to study the person who is studying.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure that is from, Nikhila Joy Devi's book.
Yeah. But I love that, right? It's, and like Arjuna is instructed in the Bhagavad Gita that yoga is the journey of the self through the self to the self. And again, like, it's always just important to note too, that like all of these ideas, there's this tension because it's all in their application. It's all in their practice. Because like, that can, from that place of self-study, I've also seen ego arise. As we'll get to very shortly, one of the kleshas, one of the obstacles to yoga is is sometimes literally translated as I amness. So it's like how there is a tapas to going to class and committing to going to a class and going to class and being in your practice, and the tapas of the discipline and the austerity that like, I'm not here to have a great class. I'm not here to get anything right today. I'm not here to get my handstand. I'm just here to practice for the sake of my practice, period, with no attachment to the outcome. I'm just here to practice. And there are times where it's very subtle, where the practice actually, like that part of the practice is a distraction from the other practice, where like the bypass is actually going to class as opposed to just sitting still and being with your thoughts that might make you uncomfortable. And instead just be like, nope, that's not like, and there's no fixed point of that. Like there's no, it's so deeply personal. And that is also moment to moment as well, right? There's the tapas of showing up onto your mat, the svadhayaya of like getting super curious about like, who's on this mat today? Like who's that guy on the mat? What's he doing here? Why is he even here? What does he want out of this? Why did he show up to this class today? Like without thinking that there's a right answer. This is the coaching I give to myself, right? Like that there isn't, or thinking that is a fixed point or destination.
You just said something that just really resonated. I rediscovered this book, The Heart of Yoga, TKV Desikachar. And he says, and I love this, and when I read it, it sounds very similar to what you were just referencing. He said the practice of yoga must, and he uses very literal words, which are interesting. Like I don't love like must, shoulds, but he said, the practice of yoga must reduce both physical and mental impurities. But here it is. It must develop our capacity for self-examination and help us to understand that, and this is it, in the final analysis, we are not the masters of everything we do. We're not. There's just some things we're not in control of. And we are not the master. So we may be sitting on our mat going, why am I doing this? You know, who is that guy? And I love that. And it's just, you know, I love that. We are not, because how many times, and it goes, like you said, Seth, to the ego, the I amness of we think we can control everything. When the fact of the matter is, we can't control a damn thing. Excuse my language, but it's true. We can't control it.
We don't create or destroy. We merely like shuffle around and move and reorganize a little bit. But that's like creation, true creation and true destruction is the exclusive purview of the divine. So now let's talk about that, like isvara, pranidhana, as the third piece of this little prescription that we're given. So just to remind us, isvara is often translated as God, and it is not, it is and is not, right? It is and is not the idea that a lot of us who grow up with a cultural entrainment in the Abrahamic lineages of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, where God is sort of presented as this very fixed point, like over there, like up there in heaven, there's God, down here on earth is humans, and then there's holy people who might serve as like a conduit to help us mediate that engagement or connection. And in the Eastern construct, it's a very different idea where isvara is like the ruler of our own choosing. It's a personal experience of divine presence. It is not like in this text of the Yoga Sūtra, where again, like this is not a religion. This is a spiritual practice of devotion. There's a very important difference. We'll say it as many times as we need to over and over again. It never hurts to repeat. And every time we're talking about God and surrender to God, like we have to be clear about what we mean by that. So we're not saying like, give it up to Jesus and Jesus is the right answer. It might be for some of you out there, and that is beautiful. Right? Jesus was an amazing teacher. There are plenty of people in the world who wouldn't call themselves Christian, but who would say like, Jesus was just another incarnation of the Buddha. And really, if you look at the Buddha's teaching and you look at Jesus's teachings, like Like Sarah Page was talking about, the Brahma Viharis, the highest divine abodes of the Buddha, again, like the keys that we discussed of Maitri, Karunya, Mudita, Upekshanam, like those sound like some qualities that Jesus lived. And again, I didn't even grow up Christian, so keep me honest, Sarah Page. Right? But that like,
Amen.
Those attributes of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity or centeredness or confidence, right? Like Jesus had a quiet confidence about him. He didn't have to yell it from the rooftops. He just did what was right. He didn't do it for the attention. He didn't wash the feet of lepers and prostitutes for attention. He did it to be of service, deeply, profoundly.
And for his father, Ishvara, it was a dedication. It was a deep, deep dedication.
A tapas, right? Like an austerity even. So there's this idea of the divine, and it's a divine of I love this like turn of phrase, a divine of our understanding. And then pranidhana. Pra is before, like the prefix. It means like if you think prasarita, padottanasana, right? Like forward fold. So then ni is like inward. So if you literally think about what it means to put something before and within, you just like physically, it like you bow in, right? You bow into yourself. Pranidhana. Let's pause and talk about this idea of like surrender to divine. We've spoken about it before. So maybe Sarah Page, since I know how much you love this idea, like give us just like a little recap about what it means to be in isvara pranidhana.
Well, it's complete surrender. It's in my mind, and for me personally, and what I do a lot is just basically say, when I find myself in tapas, where I'm efforting, where I'm finding myself in deep friction and I'm heated, I will take a step back. I will take my breath, and I will say, I give it up. There's nothing I can do. I'm just going to give it up. I usually, I've always been very clear that I am a Christian. So what I say is, I give it to you, Lord, whatever it is, just take it. And inevitably, the weight is lifted off, and I can see more clearly what it is. Satchitananda says something that I think is just beautiful. He says, once something is ripened, it should be passed on. So dedication is true yoga. Say, I am thine, all is thine, thy will be done. Mine binds, thine liberates. Mine binds, tapas, thine liberates. So if you drop minds all over, they will undermine your life or blow up in your face. I know, I tell them. But if you change all the minds to thines, you will always be safe. And is that amazing?
That feels like it was just called from the ages to this exact moment.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'll just leave that there.
I got goosebumps, Seth, you said that. Thank you.
Yeah. Sally, I know you have a different relationship to the divine, like of your own. And I'm interested in like for you.
It's taken me some time to get comfortable with this. And once again, Ruben Vasquez, like I love the word that he used for isvara pranidhana, was humility. And I was like, in his commentary, I want to read the whole thing, but let me just read this section. It says, when you release the illusion of control, you cultivate humility. Humility encourages you to be honest and patient, while also helping you accept and appreciate yourself and the world as it is. And it just takes a load off the shoulders for those of us who have, for me, who sometimes thinks I'm responsible for everything. Like, no, I'm not. I'm just responsible for me and the choices I make, And
that's not selfish. And that is taking the lifeline and the oxygen mask and placing it over your face first. And then you can give more to others.
I don't know if I'm circling back to this whole sutra, but what It's integrating these three practices. And so he's using enthusiasm, intelligence, and humility. And it's like comparing it.
Wait, let's slow that down. Let me just, before we get into, I get where you're going to go. Put like this quick pause. Let's just quickly get into the last two words, Kriya and Yoga. So Kriya is usually referred to as like action or practice. And I think it's like, I just don't want to gloss over that, because like it's a really important idea that in the beginning of this chapter on sadhana, on spiritual practice, like Kriya, it has like a more even more embodied context, because in other, like in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, for example, there are proscribed kriyas, which in that context are purifications. Like for example, like, I am not like really trained to instruct this, but I've done it, which is like the Uddiyana Bandha Kriya. So Uddiyana Bandha Kriya is done. And I'm like, if you're interested at home, I'm just going to give you a quick example of it. Like it is literally like pulling the navel so dramatically into the spine and up. You're actually supposed to hollow out the space under your rib cage. And it is like a deep, purification practice. And then you would move on to the Nauri Kriya. Have you ever seen anyone do Nauri Kriya? It looks like belly dancing almost. It's an intentional undulation of, I can't do it. I can't do it. And then like, so the Uddiyana Bandha Kriya, you're like pulling in and up and like pumping it like all the way to like hollow out your like compress your abdomen. You definitely can't do it after, like it's usually done first thing in the morning, because you have to be empty. Or if you're not going to be, you're going to get, right? Cause it's physically like what it's again, the unbelievable wisdom of the ancients. Like they understood how to solve so many problems. And Nauri Kriya was another one. And it was like, this intentional, it's like mirroring the peristaltic, musculature and movement that moves material through your intestines. And except it's like literally, it looks like, I'm starting to like it's like as if you were undulating your whole abdomen. So it sort of looks like belly dancing, but even more elevated, because again, it has that like hollowing out. So anyway, so like these are really intense purification practices, and those are kriyas. So there's this sense then that Kriya Yoga is it's the first time really that like we are given specific practices. Because we've been given these ideas of like, what is practice? What does it mean to devote yourself to the divine? What is the nature of the divine? Well, the divine is the unexcelled seat of all knowledge. The divine is that which transcends cause and effect, space, time. And I like, right. And like, so like, but it's all pretty conceptual. And now we get into something that is way more about action. So then, Sally, take it into those three ideas of how it was referred to by, I think it was by Ruben Vasquez.
Yeah. So the definition he uses for 2.1, Sutra 2.1, yogic action, Kriya Yoga, combines enthusiasm, tapas, intelligence, svadhayaya, and humility, isvara, pranidhana. And then in his commentary, he goes on to say that Patanjali defines yogic action as an action that combines enthusiasm, intelligence, and humility. You can only act in the present. An action in the past or future is a thought about an action, not an actual action. The definition of yoga requires enthusiasm, tapas, to bring your attention to the moment that you are in. Intelligence, svadhayaya, helping you distinguish between the helpful and unhelpful ways of being that you have cultivated. And humility, isvara, pranidhana, frees you up from constant engagement, striving, judging, and resistance. And if you'll give me one more paragraph, I just thought it was so good. Understanding yogic action as an act that integrates enthusiasm, intelligence, and humility conveys the richness of this idea while also making it possible to apply it in your life. Enthusiasm gives you the energy and inspiration to act. That enthusiasm motivates you to do your best. Without enthusiasm, ideas are rarely acted upon. Enthusiasm provides the determination and energy to remove obstacles and inefficiencies. Svadhayaya means the study of wisdom texts, chanting, and self-study. Svadhayaya is embodied intelligence that can be applied by ensuring that you know, and this I thought was key, why you are doing what you are doing, and by confirming that you are in fact doing what you think you are doing. And then when you release the illusion of control, you cultivate humility. Humility encourages you to be honest and patient while also helping you accept and appreciate yourself and the world as it is. And to me, that just tied it up. And somewhere I heard an explanation about maybe a single corded rope and a 3-corded rope and the strength of the three together.
Yeah, that's in the ancient commentary is like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you think about one piece of string, easy to pull apart. You take 3 pieces of string and you twist them up and you try to pull them apart, much more difficult. I think we're all living examples of this, right? Like, how did we come to this practice? Like, what? None of us were born into lineages of yoga. Like many, many, many very lucky births to have been born into these lineages. We were born with other karma. And yet somehow some spark was ignited. Something that was, I think it's something, like, I don't think the kind of like love of yoga that like, I think I don't think that comes from anywhere, but from within personally. Like it's, and I do think it's within everyone. It's just a matter of like the right frequency to harm that finds like the resonance for every single person. It's like, it's why there's no one right. We've said this. It's like, there's no one right yoga. There's no like correct answer to yoga. And why we always constantly bring in multiple references from our own life, from our own practices, from different lineages, because we're in, I think something that I love about about our approach is that we're not, trying to present anything with certainty. We're trying to like, we're inviting you into our studentship, but with enthusiasm, right? With enthusiasm, because like, I know for me, one of those moments was like, we were chanting the Guru Mantra. I'd been practicing at Jivamukti Yoga in New York for about 6 months. And we were chanting the Guru Mantra in class. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. There's a Guru of creation, there's a Guru that sustains us, and there's a Guru of transformation. There's a Guru seen and nearby, and Guru in the infinite beyond. That's a funny slip of words, but they're both true. Intimate and infinite beyond. And I humble myself before the teachings of my Guru, right? I offer my humble obeisances at the lotus feet of my Guru. And I remember, I was driving my mom. I was moving her. And I had been divorced by that point for about 3.5 years. Since my ex and we were like divorced probably too. And I remember this is one of the first times that was like one of the first moments where I started really getting curious about like the yoga off the mat. And I remember somehow it came up and he came up, and I remember thinking to myself like, well, what if he's my Guru? Not the only one, but certainly I learned a lot in the experience. So he's a Guru. He's a remover of some kind of darkness. And what would it mean to really humble myself before that? Take my ego out. It's the first time I ever really wondered what would happen if I tried to let go of my own rightness of the experience, that I was right and he was wrong. How would I feel? And it's the first time I think that a different kind of crack opened to let some new light shine in. And I remember then I caught myself and I was like, wait, this is weird. But I had an enthusiasm, right? I had an enthusiasm. Like these ideas, these teachings started to just like make sense. And, you know, along the way, I've discovered this, one of my favorite quotes of the ancient Greeks now is the Socrates, that all learning is remembering. I think this is all wisdom we remember. And I just love that concept of enthusiasm, intelligence, and humility as ways to then like understand what it means to be in the action of yoga practice. You got to want to do it. Right? Like it is, again, it's another cliche. And because it is true that like your teacher will manifest and appear to you at the time you are ready and are able to receive it. Which, you know, I've said this so many times and I'll say it so many times. Two of the most unbelievable blessings of my life are Rima and Bethany, because they are two masterful teachers who are so different in their style, lineages, methods, ways of teaching, with unbelievable depth of understanding of these practices from their respective lineages and life experiences. And I know how much they love me, how much they believe in me. And like, to have two people who are teachers, is something like in this practice, like I am so enthusiastic, to get to practice with masters. It's like there's, I get so excited. I really do. I really do. And there's like an intelligence that arises, and it's not like a epistemological, it's not an intellectual intelligence. It's an intelligence of experience. It's an intelligence of deep, deep, deep knowing. Yes, I've learned so much from them, but what I've learned maybe more than anything from them is like, it's always felt like remembering. They've just illuminated something that was already there. And like a humility to be so grateful and to never think I've got the right answer. Cause neither of them has ever presented that to me. And I don't believe it is like presented that way in either of those lineages of practice. There's just a deep, deep humility. So I don't know how that lands for either of you. Like, what does it feel like to live those values?
Well, I wanted to comment on something that you just said that it goes to chakra work, which I love, which is the Ajna chakra. Everything we need to know, we already do know. We really do. We know it. It's somewhere. It may be something that we don't want to really look at right now. It may be something that we don't really want to face. That's the tapas of life. But it's there, and we know what we know. And so, but I just wanted to touch on that because, you know, it's energy. Chakras are all energy. So we have it in ourselves to do what we need to do. And we know what we need to do. Either we do it or we don't.
And but we always know. And then the question is like, do we have the courage? Right? Because again, like this is where these practices too, like this is so cyclical. It's like, you have the wisdom. I mean, I've actually said that in class before too. Like, what if you told yourself that you know everything you need to know because it's exactly what's brought you to where you are? And that's exactly where you're supposed to be. What if that is what you started your class with, right? That like, you have this enthusiasm for what you've learned and trust that it's exactly what's needed. Not to say that it's complete, but it got you here.
That goes to tapas. Right? It goes right back to tapas. I mean, and tapas also, I think oftentimes when I think about the friction, it's fear. We run from it. If fear stops us from so many things. I mean, if I think about this podcast, listen, I'm the Labrador retriever of the group. I'll just go along with the two of you, you know, whatever y'all want to do. I'm in the sandbox and let's play. I'm there for it, but I'm not going to lie. There was a moment or two where I was like, no, I can't possibly. I'll say something stupid. And I have, and I don't really care. I mean, I've been who I am in this podcast, but if I had let the fear stop me, if I had let it, you know, if I didn't get into the friction of it, if I didn't get into the surrender of it, if I didn't get into all of it, then what a loss. You know, what an absolute, the Kriya of it, the action of going out and buying the microphone and getting the kit and not knowing how to plug in the microphone and trying to figure out how to work Riverside, our little platform.
Page story.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well,
did you push it in all the way? Did you?
It's in the book.
Did you?
And I was like, yes, yes, yes. So anyway, but it's like,
that's actually it though. Like, so wait, what we're referring to, if you didn't listen, this is a really funny story. So Sarah Paige and I went to B&H in the city to go buy these microphones, and B&H, cause like you actually can get really great service there. It's an iconic retail experience in New York City. And so we get back home and like, I'm plugging my microphone in and like, we've got our little studio headphones and we're going to be cool podcasters. And Sarah Paige is dead set convinced that her microphone doesn't work and that it's like faulty.
And I'm like I'm going to have to come back into the city and get a new one.
Convinced. And I kept saying to her, did you put the connector in all the way? Did you hear it click? Yes, I heard it click. Are you sure you heard it click? Yes. And
I was convicted. Yes.
You were convicted and convinced.
Oh, totally.
And
so then I'll pick it up from here.
Yeah, go.
He goes, go to the Apple store. And I said, okay, fine. But it doesn't work. And I have to come back and I got to change it out because of course mine doesn't work. So I went in, honest to God, I go into the Apple store and I said, it doesn't work. The woman in 3 seconds goes, click. You just didn't plug it in all the way. 3 seconds. 3 seconds. And all I could think of was, and then of course it goes back to, fat, lazy, stupid. And then I couldn't stop laughing. And then I had to call Seth and say, guess who didn't do what you were saying, but I didn't have to go to the Apple store. You know what I mean? I didn't have to do those things. I know, but what I'm saying is that it would have been easy to just get a new one or something, let somebody else fix it. The thing that this has given me is that I can do so much more than I thought I could do. So much more than I, like plugging in, like figuring out how to work the mic.
Stayed in the heat.
Yeah.
You stayed in the heat with some enthusiasm. You listened to your inner wisdom and then you called forth incremental when you was needed. And then you surrendered. That's literally Kriya Yoga in action.
And you know what? It was fine. It was funny. And here we are. I even took, when I had to go home, I thought, okay, I got it all, is it going to work? Am I going to make it work? I mean, I remember asking my brother, do you have Wi-Fi in the guest house? He's like, Sarah Paige, yes, we got Wi-Fi in the guest house. And I was like, okay, I just need to make sure it's going to work. And I remember once we set it up and Sally got on and I was like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? And she's like, yeah, I can hear you. I was like, oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
I have
all of a sudden,
taken it on the road and it works.
Yes. Amazing.
But
all right.
6 months ago, that wouldn't have happened. Yeah. 6 months ago, it wouldn't have happened.
Yep. But here we are.
Here we are.
And I'm beginning again. Right. Cause I think it's just so important to say too, these Kriya Yoga, this is not all of these practices. These aren't boxes to tick. And if you're it's the classic cliche, if you're coming to class for handstand, mazel tov, you figured out the first part, which is go to class. But if you're going to get the handstand and then it's just going to feel empty. If you're just making money because you want the money because somebody else has more money and you think that the money will be the thing, unfortunately, I hope I am not the one informing you of this, dear listener, but it probably won't be the thing. But what is the thing is being honest with yourself about that enthusiasm and about the courage required to engage with tapas, right? Bethany, one of the mottos of Lion's Den Power Yoga, of Bethany Lion's Studio, is be courageous. And I like to say that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the willingness to acknowledge fear and the choice to move forward regardless. That's real courage. Right? That's real tapas. And it's svadhayaya too. It's the intelligence to know, when do I stay? When do I go? Because both require tapas, to know when to stay and to know when to go. And to not have that be for you. It's not mine, but thine. That it's in service, truly, when we're in this Kriya Yoga, the Dharma, the real path for each and every one of us. And it's a deeply, deeply personal journey. But to get so curious that we're willing to then just let it go. Just let it go and surrender it so that we can stay in action. Right. And if nothing else, may you find a path to your own understanding of this Kriya Yoga, may each and every one of us cultivate that courage to be with the heat and accept the pain of purification, and know that the only way out is through, and to do so with a deeply profound and loving curiosity about the student, which is you. Deeply, deeply curious. Because in curiosity is possibility, right? Curiosity requires us not to see ourselves as a fixed, completed object. Curiosity requires that we see ourselves as a work in progress. You know, I like to say, you know, I as much as I let go of rightness, as much as I try to let go of rightness, one of the ways I've said it that's sort of a little bit helpful for me is that, like, all I can do is the best I've figured out so far. Right? It's just the best I've figured out so far. This is just the best Seth I've figured out so far. It is by no means the best Seth ever that will ever be. Hopefully there's a better Seth to come someday. Right? Maybe tomorrow, maybe next word I say, but that, like, it's just the best Seth I've figured out so far. And that, like, that best Seth is at his best, at my best, when it is in service, right? I've just had a lot of attraction to the story and of the Ramayana, and especially to the character of Hanuman. And I've quoted this a bunch, and it's that, you know, Lord Hanuman said, the most devoted servant of Lord Ram, the most devoted servant of the divine, and who's believed to be like an avatar of Vishnu, of Krishna by way of Vishnu. Hanuman tells Lord Ram, when I forget who I am, I serve you. When I know who I am you. And that is like Kriya Yoga so beautifully, right? That he is in the action, in the tapas of service, in the story of the Ramayana, right? Lord Hanuman is in service. He is in action. It's in its heart. Lord Hanuman is the one who has to go and find Sita in Lanka and then gather the monkey army to build the bridge. All the things. And there's a deep intelligence, a profound intelligence of Lord Hanuman. And the study of self, he knows that his dharma is to serve. He serves his brother, the Monkey King, and he serves Lord Ram. And he does so as a practice of devotion. Like, there's so many images of Hanuman show him, like, as if he opens up his chest, and there's always depicted there Sita and Ram. Like, in the heart of Hanuman is his spiritual master, his object of devotion. That feels like a nice place to end. Okay, let's do a fast round. And let's do some inquiry real quick. Sarah Page, what is some inquiry inspired by this discussion?
You just inspired it, actually. When we were in Rishikesh, there's a huge statue of Hanuman opening up his chest. And I'm just curious, what is in your chest?
Oh, what's in your heart?
What's in your heart, really? What's in your heart? If we were to open you up, it's making me cry. What is in your heart?
Ooh, I feel that emotion. Yeah. Sally, what's some inquiry that's been inspired for you?
I have, do you have practices that build enthusiasm, self-study, and humility? Is there an area where one of these pillars is missing? And how do you show up in the heat of your practice or the heat of your life?
Yeah, I would, I think my inquiry for this week is, where's the heat you lean into and lean away from? Who is that best so far for you? Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Where's a moment? Maybe even think you could just challenge yourself to think about a moment where you really felt like you were showing up in that way. And what would it look like to allow that to be of service, truly of service to something, someone, to I sense that that's bigger. How is it part of a bigger purpose? And it's okay if you don't know. That's actually an amazing answer. It's a really scary answer, and it's a ruthlessly honest answer. And talk about an answer from which you could find so much possibility and like really revel in the, and relish the uncertainty because it's probably a lot more true than a lot of people who think they know or want to tell themselves something when, like, if you really peel that back, I don't know if they'd be certain as they like to present themselves to be. I don't know. Just a guess. I know for me, when I these days, when I find myself feeling certain, like certain, I'm so right. Like I got, like now, I think there's a Seth, like, I don't know, several iterations of Seth ago, who stopped there. And now I think Seth now takes that place and actually gets super curious. Like, why do I need to be so right about that? That's a really interesting question. Okay. One teaching tip. For those of us who teach asana and teach, every single one of us are teachers, whether you give class or you take class, you're the best teacher you know. So what's a teaching tip that you could bring in from these ideas, Sally?
So I would suggest that use the practice to practice self-discipline to stay in the heat, to allow what needs to be burned off or purified, allow that to happen. And then notice your inner attitude, surrender to what is, and choose thoughts and actions that build enthusiasm, self-study, and humility.
Gorgeous. Sarah Page.
It goes into what you were saying about the rightness. So where are you stuck in your rightness? Where are you stuck in the mine? And where does that blow up in your face? So when you're teaching and you're so stuck in, no, you need to do this, or they're not doing what I said, they're not doing what I asked them to do. And if that gives you a charge, take a real deep,
Yeah.
Take a breath.
I'm guilty. Sometimes I'm fully admit guilty.
Because
why aren't you listening to me?
That's just ego, my friends. That is just ego.
100%.
And it's, for me personally, it's more fun to see, oh, okay, I thought we were going to do shoulders, but it looks like hips is where we need to go, and be able to kind of make, get out of the mind, get out of the rightness, and listen to your students. They know what they need. They know.
Drop what you know and listen.
Thank you.
That's it. Yeah. My teaching tip would be to so all three of us teach like a power flow method where we tend to move through poses, like 5 breaths is typical, not much longer. And I think it might be like something I want to play with and invite students into, is to slow down, like really slow down, and like hold something for 10 breaths and really commit to it. Also, it's going to feel like an eon, like an era, but it's just 10 breaths, and to like trust the heat. Take it a little easy in the face, get really curious about what comes up for you and commit to stay, and get curious about like what's going on inside when you stay in the 8th breath of Warrior 2, which PS is like a super hard pose if you're really fully integrated to do it. 10 breaths in Warrior 2, you could break a sweat. If you are activated from the feet and to the tips of your fingers, to the crown of your head, to the base of your spine, you can easily break a sweat in Warrior 2.
You're working every muscle.
Literally every muscle, full whole body integration. So there's no such thing as an easy pose. So like, what if there was no such thing as an easy pose and you just stay and you get really curious about what comes up? You listen without reacting. You watch and observe your own mind without reacting. And then you just give it up. You just let it go. Right? It's over and done. And don't dwell on it. Drop the significance of it. And then do it again. Just do it again. Okay. Well, next week we're going to be here doing this again. And wow. I mean, I feel like we scratched the surface of these big ideas, which is also why we're going to do like a whole week. When we get to the niyamas and the yamas and niyamas, we're going to do a whole week on tapas and a whole week on svadhayaya and a whole week on isvara pranidhana. Because that's like it all, these are lifelong practices. We could study each one of these ideas for life and barely begin to understand them. So, but I always feel somehow transformed when we come through these sessions, when we come through these recordings and these conversations, because something inspires a new way of seeing and engaging with this. Like, I'm going to really chew on that super simple but beautiful framework of enthusiasm, intelligence, and humility. Like how do I trust my enthusiasm to cultivate embodied intelligence and then be super humble about it? like as in like, let that be of service so that it can truly deepen and enrich my sadhana, and the dharma of my, and the dharma of my highest self in service. This sadhana I have so much enthusiasm for because it deepens my intelligence so profoundly. And we really offer this as a humble, hopeful point of some goodness in the world. So if you hear the sound of our voice and you get any benefit, please subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment. Anything like that helps organic discovery. And if you think this is valuable and you know someone who would be interested, please feel free to send it and share. But I think that's all the things I'm supposed to say at the end now, except goodbye. Yeah. And thank you. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Page.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, every single one of you who hears the sound of our voices. We're so grateful, deeply, deeply, deeply grateful. Thank you for joining our sadhana, and we hope to see you again very soon. Take good care.
Bye-bye, y'all.